The recruitment sector had its nose punched in 2024. After 2022, which was the best year that we've ever had in recruitment, 2023 just slowed down. If it wasn't for contracts, everyone would have their asses on the floor right now. If I were to start up a recruitment business today, would I be based in the UK? 100%. Would I touch the UK market? Not in a million years.
Gary Goldsmith.
Gary Goldsmith.
Gary Goldsmith.
Gary Goldsmith.
Gary, Uncle Gary.
Gary Goldsmith, TV star, mentor, and industry heavyweight. With decades in the game, he was the architect behind S3's contract division, a business that's revolutionized the recruitment industry. He's worked with some of the biggest names in recruitment, helping agencies maximize profitability, streamline operations, and cut through the noise in an ever-changing market. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to survive and thrive in recruitment, Gary's the man to tell you, as he's diving deep into the challenges recruiters face, the biggest mistakes agencies are still making, and what the future holds for the industry. Stay tuned.
Hi everyone, welcome to Jove Insurance Podcast, where we discuss everything about AI, compliance, insurance, and the recruitment space. So today we have a very special guest, Gary Goldsmith. Hi Gary.
Hello, how's my sound? Everything good? Excited to be here, but although it's absolutely raining cats and dogs outside, so hopefully people can hear us.
Can you hear the rain outside? Can you hear it?
Well, I can hear it. Let's see if they can.
Probably, maybe I don't think the listeners can hear it. But anyway, well, thank you for being here. So, Gary, tell us a bit more about yourself. You are a big figure within recruitment space, right? Everyone know about you, obviously, from S3 all the way to, RDLC, Pirates. I don't think many listeners want the needs introduction. However, of course, we have a lot of VCs, venture capital, insurance people who may not know your background. So tell us more a bit about yourself.
Well, when you call me a massive and a big character, I just thought you called me fat. So, but apart from that, let's just move on subtly. I'm on the Moonjaro. I've lost 4 stone. Where are you going with that? Recruitment lifer. This year is my 40th year in recruitment. It's my 60th year birthday in April 29th. I do accept presents and I get a bus pass. I've pretty much done everything and anything there is to do in the world of recruitment. From working with small startups to getting fired in my first job, to working with businesses who said you shouldn't work in perm markets, you should definitely be a contract consultant, because there is a marked difference. So I'd love to talk about that with somebody at some point. Also then to have the opportunity to go and reskill myself, to get myself fit and prepared to take on something as a big challenge. Was really fussy about the next job. I sent my CV to 300 odd companies and just see who came back. Very unfussy. And then was given the opportunity to start up a contract business, S3, which flew. So fastest growing contract business that's ever lived. When I joined them, with all the love in the world to my beautiful friends at S3, and we still do lunches together, we still do Christmases, but without me, they'd have been shit. They were, after 6 years, they were doing epoxy 3 million quid on perm. And in my first 6 years, we got to 258 million. So do the maths. It's been an absolute joyful ride. We took it to an IPO. We had to mature the business as to the way we grew. We always thought about being a bigger business than we were at any one time. I remember with the first CFO we got, he said, this train set isn't quite big enough for me. And we were 100 staff at that point. We thought, you cheeky bugger, right? We're a proper grown-up business. And he just basically told us to get a wiggle on and grow faster, which was great, having a financial person that said, spend more money, grow. So I think we were a very eclectic, strong business. There was a mixture of intellects and smart people because they're very different. And that meant that every board meeting was a bun fight. There was no one person who was stronger than anyone else. It was the collective that made us great. And then joyfully, once the IPO happened, 3-year earn-out, I was beautifully sacked at the right moment, at the right time, with the right margins. I used to do chairman's hours, so getting getting in and doing 10 to 4, and eventually that was the time I got in. So you slightly get disengaged once you go through an IPO, so people need to know that story. But when you grow a business in the recruitment sector, if you really want to achieve something and leave a footprint, and the business that we left, that all of the 6 founders now have kind of gone from, is currently doing 2 billion in revenues, and it's still based on the same foundation. So if you want to grow the Shard, it starts with foundation, 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 and you don't start going up until you get that bit right. So it's a joy to speak to you today about things around compliance, getting processes right. Forgive me for swearing, but just don't fuck around with stuff, because if the minute you make one mistake, that will come back and haunt you. And there's a lot of man hours to actually get that fixed. So that's where I am. I'm very aware of businesses. I always tell people in terms of the world of insurance, as a recruitment business leader, there gets to a certain point where you shouldn't buy your insurance off of the cheapest provider, and you should never buy it off the internet. You have to buy your insurance off of somebody who's grown up, who understands your business and will give you advice on stuff. So we all flipped to Chubb and Hiscox a long time ago, and having someone who actually understands the needs. If I'm out with someone, I want them to drive me home. I want to be able to throw my car keys at them and they drive me home without thinking about it. If you buy your insurance off of the cheapest provider on the internet, that can't happen. And I think the same's relevant for business. It doesn't need to be the cheapest. It just needs to be the best and fit for purpose.
I think you mentioned about really scaling the business, right? From actually funding, for example, S3, all the way to taking an IPO. What do you think is the biggest challenge within this journey? So obviously, it goes from maybe a 5 people, 10 people business, between permanent and contract, all the way to bring it to the revenue that you are actually, 200 to 2 billion revenue that you're just talking about. Because I think even for the tech community, a lot of people really are interested in, okay, initially I'm really solving a problem. So what is the problem that I'm seeing? And I'm zooming into the operation of that problem. At a certain point, I'm actually starting to say, okay, this is really working, right? So the product is really working, the process is working, and then I need to bring it to the next level. So as an experienced business owner, what do you think that is the biggest challenge between the stage of, okay, I'm doing well, this is a good product, versus I can actually bring this to the next level, to a $1 billion company, and the process going around it?
Okay, there's about 15 different questions in there. Can I'll answer the one that
Sure,
really
go ahead.
resonates with me?
Yeah.
That was brilliant. I think the one thing that we kind of mastered as a business was having a vision that we could put into numbers. So a lot of people say we want to be the biggest, we want to be the number one, we want to be the go-to. What does that actually mean? And what would trigger someone choosing to work with you? So how do you become front of mind? How do you become that brand that people associate with being kind of cool? Are we trying to sell people and put bums on seats, or are we trying to solve problems? So we try to numerify that, if that's a word. I will make up words. And at that point, to get to the point where S3 is today, it's not one business. So we talk about the time when I left the business, and it was a bittersweet day. It was a lot of cash, but it was time to pass it on to the next generation. It was, although we had like 3,500 contractors, it was 60 different profit centers, and each one started with 4 people. We tried to formulate something, and it came with a plan. So we worked out what our plan was. So when we talk about, and as I mentioned, building foundations, what is our secret sauce? What do we do? If you ever seen The Founder, about the McDonald's story, it really resonates with me. You want to do something different, work it out to its infinite detail, know what's right, and then you can press the explosion button and throw loads of people into that. And you know that you've got weights and measures at this end. So
How do you find that explosion point? So this is a really interesting point, right? Like, what did you do to test it, to say what's working, what's not working, and this is really the hotspot. This makes us different to all the competitors out there in the market.
if you slow down, you'll go faster. If you want a snapshot, and we use this still in today in every business I work with. Everyone is so ambitious that they're just saying it feels right. So I said, well, prove it to me in science. Business is a mixture of art and science, in my opinion. The artistry is if you can get average people to be good and good people to be brilliant, then you've got the artistry right. If you've got the science to help you in terms of investment, ROI, measurements, hiring triggers, and you don't break it, then you've got the science right. So you will grow profitably rather than growing. And it's like one of those coin tosses. Is this going to work or not? We didn't do any of that. Everything had to be based on the mixture of getting the right people and the right processes. So we would always start with 4 in a practice, and we work it out. And once you work it out with 4, then we could take another 4 on. So we could double or die was a massive mantra. And once you got 4 going to 8, then to 16, then to 32, we doubled or died every year. And that's what helped, because we knew that this is the formula that works and we could scale it anywhere and everywhere. And that's what people wanted to buy. So if people are, the first thing that people do in the recruitment sector, and I love the recruitment sector, I love you all, you know that. The first thing they do is give a business a name. The second thing they do is work on their exit strategy.
And straight away.
Straight away. And we spend our time going, there's 20 years in the middle here. It's like, what are you doing, freak? So
it's enjoying the journey, right? Like not really just thinking
look
about the exit
enjoy
strategy.
the journey. Don't be just running towards something, because you'll never get there. So people are not buying what you've done, they're buying what you could do. So if you can build a story that says we are robust, we are risk-free. So that I remember Sean Wadsworth when he was at Nigel Frank, and probably the greatest exit I've ever seen of a perm business, 11 times multiple, although Sean will say it's probably 9. But he says, Gary, I need some advice. I'm looking at going on this exit journey. What would you tell me to do? And I said, you have to hire a bloke called Mark Heath. So Mark Heath was this guy who was my first boss, the first proper boss in recruitment. And he used to liken me to being like a mad dervish, and he was like the broomstick that swept up after me with all the damage that I caused with all the clients. And he was process driven and absolutely bonkers in terms of do not manage risk. So Mark helps them make sure that everything they did was straight line, process bonkers. So when they came to do DD, the money that they spent on Mark and his processes and changing the way that they did and telling people, no, you can't do that deal because it's risky, came back. And Sean says it was 10 times, 20 times, 30 times what it cost us to do that in the DD exercise, because he had a case history of 10 years of never just taking anything risky on. So people just said, we've done that for the last 10 years. What's the chances that you've not done that in the last 6 months or 12 months? So everyone got an extra tick on, an extra turn on their results.
So what you're saying is actually even affected their exit value as well. So which is a lot of the business owner don't really think about that when they are actually building the process. Because if you think about it, a lot of people think compliance is just boring. It's just, the necessary evil. And I don't like process. Yeah. Salespeople hate compliance, right?
Well,
would you say that? Yeah.
Okay. So we had a guy called Alan Todd, who I loved very dearly. So Alan was basically entitled internally as the business undevelopment team. So people would come in with opportunities. Every deal had to be approved by a director and then had to be approved by Alan. And if Alan said, these terms don't match, this doesn't match, I don't like this, they're paying us on this. People make stupid mistakes. You're paying us dollars, but we're paying out in sterling. Yeah. I mean, it's just stupid, right? Stuff like that. Yeah. We haven't put any withholding tax in Germany or the dam. So he just basically ratified everything. And it was the joy that this stuff now. So Alan Todd saved us so much money because people were so stupid, because they were so keen to get the deal done. They just didn't look at the finite detail of everything. And the manager wanted the deal to be done. And we just needed someone like Alan who just didn't give a shit and would say, no,